This is a Guide Your Light Network production, creating podcasts with purpose.
This podcast is brought to you by the Global Soul Centre and the Energy Raising Foundation. Hello, beauty. Welcome to episode 22. I have just had the absolute pleasure of interviewing Lindie Gunston. Lindie is just a ripper of a woman. She's raw, she's real, she's just herself, which is refreshing. She is an Australian-wide psychic spirit medium, a teacher, a mentor, a mother. She was born in South Africa and she was actually raised in a really religious household. She was, as you'll hear in the conversation, she was the daughter of a Pentecostal minister. And we talk a little bit about that and how channeling maybe is seen by different religions and speaking in tongues in like the Pentecostal religion and things like that. And she has now been teaching psychic and medium development for 10 years. And she explains herself as not being like a traditional psychic or fortune teller predicting the future, but she helps encourage people just to feel into their own heart for their own truth. She works also as a medium, connecting people to their loved ones who have passed, and teaching is really a passion for Lindie, and it's something that she's stepping into more and more, and she loves sharing her passion of spirit through teaching in an authentic and a really grounded way that removes some of the woo-woo around psychic and mediumship work. And she is committed to do that on earth until her dying day. There's a big commitment, Lindie. So I'd love to share her with you. She has just so much wisdom and she's fun. And yeah, I just love her. So enjoy, jump into this beautiful and interesting conversation with the amazing Lindie Gunston. Hello, beautiful face, beautiful cheek, beautiful woman, Miss Lindie Gunston. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, lovely darling, for having me.
Oh, it's just delicious. I have loved you from the moment that we first connected back in Seven Sisters.
Yay. What a festival that was.
Oh my God. So this was, listeners, we are like March 2020. Lindie and I are at Seven Sisters Festival. It's the first time I've ever been there. And we were both presenting at that festival, and that's how we connected. And we came out of that bubble and like the whole hoo-ha had started upon the world. And we were literally in this little bubble of love, and it was quite a shock to come out and see that everyone had started to lose their minds. And I remember getting on my Facebook, and I actually had really no sense of what was going on. And I remember doing like a Facebook Live saying, okay, everyone, like, let's just take a breath, calm down. I feel like the biggest virus that we should be concerned about is the fear that is suddenly flying around everyone's minds right now, like blah, blah, blah. But then obviously, it did turn out to be
quite the thing, didn't it?
The whole, quite the thing, wherever people were on the whole hoo-ha. But it was interesting times, hey?
Interesting times. And I think a lot of it also had to do with how we view the world too, a matter of perspective, because when I look back into those times, I had so many beautiful opportunities and lessons for growth that presented at the time that actually carried me through COVID. And of course, one of those experiences was literally Seven Sisters, having those beautiful connections in a space where we just felt completely safe in our little bubble. Yeah. And that was the first time I'd done audience readings at Seven Sisters, actually. Yeah. And I remember Tonya and I sitting underneath a tree talking about how we should approach Lauren, who's the head honcho of Seven Sisters, and ask her if we could potentially do a mediumship show there. Yes. And as we were talking about it, she literally walked past us.
Oh, so good.
We both looked at each other and went, oh my God. And we got up and we legged it after her pretty much. And yeah, had the conversation with her and she said, by all means apply. And the rest was history. And so when we chatted with Mary, Mary said, you know, we've never had mediums do a show, you know, so pretty much prove yourself to us.
Yeah.
And we did.
And damn how, yeah, we did. You did.
We did.
Yeah.
You know, and we absolutely loved it. We couldn't fit any more women into that space. And it was just incredible. Sorry, my knees, I'm taking my socks off, so my knees have just knocked the table. And
well, no surprises there, because it's interesting. Whenever I interview or chat with a medium, a channeler or whatever, a couple of times I've asked them, like, you got any shoes on? And they're like, nah. Like, I've never got shoes on when I'm doing these sessions.
Because I've been walking the dog.
Yeah, it's all the fun
such an
stuff.
incredible experience being there at that time, and just being held in that space and holding that space for others, because we had no idea what it would be like on the outside. And it sounded to me probably worse than what it was. Actually, you know, it just sounded really shocking. Getting out there, you know, I felt my perspective and my experience really helped to keep me in the moment.
Yeah. I think that it was just an incredible, how would you look at it? But just the psychology around what went down was just quite astounding. Very much was very testing for a lot of humans around how people were going to respond and react to, I think, particularly when we're on that spiritual path of doing a lot of inner work and listening to our internal guidance, and when there's a whole lot of kind of very strong external messages. It was pretty interesting. So tell me a little bit about you. I know, but the listeners don't know, in terms of like the kick-ass work that you do in the world as a bridge between this realm and spirit, connecting with spirit. I'd just love to hear you maybe talk about and describe. I've done one of Lindie's day courses. What was the actual
I can't even remember.
Something around
I can't remember what I called it. But regardless, you know, whenever I do teach, I can call a workshop anything, and I can call a course anything, but really I'm just going to channel what spirit want. It, you know, so I could have 100 things planned, but in the moment when I'm reading the energy of the group, something else might drop in. And so when I attract people that are developing, it's important that they know that I'm quite organic, and my content and my courses are very immersive. So it's not one of those sort of courses that you sit back, or those workshops that you sit back and just observe. Because when we're doing,
we got to get it. You got to get amongst.
Got to get seen, darling.
Which can be really, it can definitely be confronting. And I know for me, because I've kind of played one lane in channeling, and there's differences with mediumship, and I didn't even understand any of this stuff when my channeling spontaneously started. And originally I thought maybe I was a medium. But then I discovered I was a channeler with capacity for mediumship. Like, I have had some direct experiences of mediumship with past loved ones communicating, but they've only been people who've been very close to me, who have very directly communicated with me. But I feel like I actually, even though the capacity's there, I have closed it down, because I just felt like I just needed a bit more wisdom on my side. Like, I feel like the custodianship nature, the sacred nature of the work you do, I don't know, it requires something that I just feel like I wasn't ready for.
Interesting. You know, because I often think to myself, why on earth did spirit pick me, or did I pick myself?
I mean, what do you think? What do you feel?
Well,
I feel, Lindie, did I choose this?
It's interesting, because when I compare the parallels of my upbringing, you know, my father was a Pentecostal minister and very charismatic, you know, and I'm very much the same. I'm not a Pentecostal minister, but I'm, you know, quite...
You're zesty.
Thank you, darling. But I have this charisma. I know it, and I've fostered it over the years. And I'm outgoing, and I connect with people, and I love connecting people from all walks of life. And it doesn't matter where people are from, how much money they've got. I will meet them where they're at, as long as I'm not an asshole, because I really just don't have space for that in my life. Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes the human expression, we carry a lot of damage. I know, because I've been there, and sometimes I still go there myself with my own healing.
We all do. And that's one
Absolutely.
thing to know, like people who are listening, sometimes people will hear people on the spiritual path or working the mediumship space or the channeling space. And I think there can be this misconception that then it's just like this perfect Zen life, or I think it's almost the opposite. I feel like the more you step into this inner work, the more the universe is like, okay, let's go, game on, growth, boom, and and that and this and that. And you're like, whoa.
Definitely. And look, I can't do this work without working through my own human conditioning and my own shit, pretty much is what I say. And so I know that when I look at the parallels with my father, I'm very much the same. My dad used to connect with a lot of people and, really sort of find out what made them tick. He wasn't always the most pleasant man to be around, but he knew how to work with people and knew how to connect. And I guess it can be like me too, because I've got very strong boundaries, and sometimes when somebody's not supposed to be in my life, or the lessons learned, that can feel quite strong to them, because my boundaries are quite strong, but they will literally bounce off my energy field. But that's not the story completely. So I feel like the reason I do this work is because I can reach a lot of people, and because I'm just me. I'm not trying to be anyone else, and we don't have to be a Buddhist on the top of a mountaintop to be able to connect with spirit. You can be a street sweeper and still have this amazing connection with spirit. I don't have any formal education qualifications other than basic, business stuff and whatever. But I've never been to university, but I can hold a conversation with a chemical engineer. And so I don't need all of those fancy titles to be able to connect with a king or a pauper. Let's just put it that way.
And I definitely have seen that and experienced that with you. I just want to ask you a little bit about your dad and the Pentecostal minister piece. Did they speak in tongues in their congregation?
Yes. And now I hear
what did that look like? Did that sound like my light code?
Yes. To me, it sounds like light language, almost, but with a different accent. So like it might be like a French accent or an Italian accent, slight difference. But the words sounded very similar. So I remember hearing that a lot when I was growing up. And in fact, they tried to force me to talk in tongues, but I refused. I'm like, I'm not talking shit, darling.
And as a young kid, it would just look totally bizarre. Like, what?
It really did.
What are you guys on?
Absolutely. And I used to, we'd go to these massive big churches, and I can't remember what they call them now, but it's kind of
conferences, like they have
like huge ones like that. And they would get people up to the front, and then they would pray on them and literally push people over. So they passed out.
Come join our religion.
And yet, and I used to observe this a lot of the kids, thinking that this was normal, but at the same time going, what the fuck have I been born into? What is this? It was really full on.
It's interesting, because I feel like the only kind of negative feedback I've had about my channeling, well, directly, like there's probably plenty of people in my field, in my space, in my world, who think, oh my God, what is going on with Alicia? She's gone batshit crazy. But the only direct negative feedback I've had is from like fundamentalist Christians who feel like I'm playing with the devil. But then I find it interesting that in the Pentecostal religion, that it's like channeling's okay.
Yes.
So it's just, I don't know how to make sense of that.
It's different labels for the same experience, and everyone just putting their own version onto it.
Interesting. And when you say how you experienced it as a younger kid watching it, I was in Bali last year, and I was doing a channeling with some light codes coming through in Bali in our villa, and my then 13-year-old daughter, like she came up behind me and she was like mimicking me, like, blah, 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 and then my then like 7-year-old kind of walked past, she rolled her eyes in the video, and it's just,
that's hilarious.
It's like they're seeing their mum thinking, what is this crazy hoo-ha?
Absolutely. Yeah. It is full on. And I also, grew up with a very strict upbringing, which I've spoken about publicly before, but it was hectic, darling. Like,
Yeah, right.
if people, sometimes when people meet me, they have two reactions to me. They either love me to bits or they just want to fuck off as far as they can in the other direction. And I know that my energy is pretty damn strong, but it's had to be strong because of what I've been through in life. If people just knew a snippet, they would understand a lot more. But I wouldn't change any of it. I would not change any of it. But my dad used to beat the living crap out of me. Like I used to get caned. It was awful, darling. Like seriously, so much physical abuse, but that was the norm. That was what kids in South Africa went through. I wasn't the only one. There was my friends that were going through the same thing, but me in particular, I think I had it quite hard, because it was really physical and it was a lot of fear and it was scary. I was always in fear, like, when am I going to get another hiding? What am I doing
little
wrong?
Lindie. I just want to come and save you from that, and just so it's so like how we normalize, how society normalizes insanity. And that's okay, that we think that's okay, and that there's just so many examples of that throughout
it really is.
the world, and it's heartbreaking. I'm so sorry.
And the thing is, my dad was doing what he thought was best. He fully believed that he was following the word of God.
Yes.
And
was helping
disciplining
you,
his children,
getting you on the right track, teaching you these things. But it's interesting because you say you were brought up with this very strict upbringing, which as a result potentially has contributed to how you are very good and clear with your boundaries.
Yes.
Whereas I was brought up, my parents, if they're listening to this, they might have a different view. I felt like I was brought up very, very free, right? I was never hit. I was threatened to be hit, but my mum kind of pretended with the door closed so my brothers thought it was happening, but it didn't, right? And I felt like there weren't a lot of constrictions on me as a kid. But as a result, two things happen. I'm ultra sensible because I kind of created my own sense of rules for myself.
Yeah.
But I'm shocking with boundaries.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm working through it, but I've almost been a boundaryless people pleaser, fawny person, that I've now got to do all this kind of work to address the other way,
Yes, that's right.
It's just so tricky, and no pressure as parents, but holy heck, it's like whichever way you go, sometimes the circumstances will just arise as they arise. And
absolutely. And you just deal with it as it comes,
Yeah.
It's a big thing for people at the moment with boundaries, and it's a lesson that seems to be coming back onto people, especially people that are on this path of evolving spiritually, because we feel like, I've got to please everybody. I've got to
help. We just want to help everyone
and just be so kind. Well, darling, I've got ADHD and sometimes I fucking forget. Sometimes shit comes out of my mouth before I can stop it. But most of the time, my intention is to meet people with kindness, but sometimes that's not perceived in that way. And sometimes that kindness is just saying, you know what? I don't want to do that. I don't want to meet you at that place. I'm going to stay here. Because if I go along and I go against my boundaries, I'm going to crack it, but I won't really crack it. But I'm just giving that as an example. And so I now know that I really do have to honor what I feel.
Yes.
People might not like that, but that's okay. That's all right. It's their choice. But it's my choice to put those boundaries into place. Whereas, part of the journey has been, working on my reactive side, because of all the trauma that I've been through, because of all the physical experience and abuse that I've had, and not to mention sexual abuse, emotional abuse, all of those sort of things. I am going to be reactive at times. But that's my healing. That's for me to deal with. And that's for me to work through at my own pace. And it's beautiful, the growth that I've had from that. So now the difference is with my boundaries, instead of cracking it with people when they don't honor my boundaries, I'm like, you know what, I'll just say my piece. Then I'll just walk away.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. And
then you're not
sometimes
feeding yourself that poison back into, like,
absolutely.
ultimately, you know, that kind of cliche, that comment. But also, do you feel that the spectrum of experiences you've had also assists you greatly
Yes.
work you do, because you're working with people that have been in the depths of despair in all various areas, and you can, like, you get it, like the level of empathy that comes with working in the space that we work, like it's
100%.
pretty next level. So
Really is.
so it's also like part of the gifts have been kind of fine-tuned by this. I feel like our soul at sometimes makes these decisions, and it knows that the human toll will be great on us.
Yes.
But also because it knows how infinite and eternal we are, it's like, in the big scheme of things, without spiritually bypassing, it's like the soul knows you're safe. The soul knows you're unharmed, you're untouched, even though it looks very harrowing and feels very harrowing.
Yes.
But then it rounds you out to be able to, you know, do the work in the way that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and that's it. We'll just, you know, just keep on growing. We just keep on doing the work. You know, the amount of stuff I can draw on for people and meet them, you know, where they're going through and what they're going through, meet them there. It's only because of what I've experienced and what I've lived through that I can do that. You know, it's like trying to guide somebody through something, through childbirth, and tell them what it's like to have a child if you've never had a bloody child.
Yes.
You know what I
I
mean?
do have
Like,
a difficulty with religion. I've been brought up Catholic, and I love Jesus. Like, Jesus is my man. Personally, I have a deep connection with Jesus, and if there was a religion that was just Jesus without all the other stuff, I'm totally in.
You can create one.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I feel is my work around teaching the way, which is around kindness and peace and loving. But I don't even know now why I spoke about that. There was something that was connected.
I'll tell you something quickly while you try and remember.
Yes.
But I, you know, because of the religious upbringing, I had a lot of resistance against religion, and I would be so triggered every time I heard the word Jesus.
Yes.
You know, and I'm like, all of that. And then as I was coming into my journey and my awakening, maybe like about 18 months into it, I remember sitting and meditating one day, and next minute I had Jesus pop in and go, "You are like me, go forth and heal." And I'm literally like, what the actual fuck did I just hear? And I felt him and I saw him, and it shifted my feelings around religion. That was one of the things that helped. There was another thing that helped as well. But I just feel like, you know, Christians, not all, but some have twisted Jesus, I guess, and made him
well, a lot of it. And Mary Magdalene, who's been made out to be this prostitute, which I don't believe. Like, I think she was actually like kind of like the leader of the apostles, and the whole not hoo-ha, don't say such a word compared to talking about that. Like, I love them. But I now remember what it was. It was around when you said, you know, childbirth, and if someone hasn't,
that's right.
That it's the same for me with certain religions where, for example, Catholic religion, the priests can't be married, right? And then they're marrying people when they have actually no concept of what that is that people are entering into. And I remember being in a church as a little girl and sitting there in the pews and learning all the words, because I was like, I'm going to be a priest. I know that that's my calling. I'm going to be a priest. And then I discovered that I couldn't be a priest in the Catholic religion because I was a woman. Anyway, we're going all over the place, but I want to talk about mediumship. And do you believe that everyone has the capacity to connect with spirit?
Absolutely. I believe we have the capacity to perceive signs from spirit and understand that, but our human experience might block that depending on what human experience we've chosen as a soul.
Yes.
You know, and so some people might have lots of barriers and belief systems to break down before they can understand that connection to spirit. And some might never, ever get there. So I think we all have the capacity, but not all of us will go in that direction. And I don't believe everybody's born to be a medium like me. Because it takes a lot of fucking hard work. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, and also like a lot of people wouldn't necessarily want this life. Like
Exactly.
it's pretty energetically big, this kind of work. So I agree with you that I think some souls choose to come for real full human experience.
Yeah.
And they are already fully spiritual. That is their nature. That is our nature. So it's like, well, I've come to tap into this holiday with like kind of crash course of, growth and stuff.
Yeah.
So I want to just come and be human. I want to just eat the stuff, enjoy the things, taste the pleasures of it. And like, I'll go back to spirit later, but I've come to I'm not going to get myself all caught up in what happens after death and all of those things.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, I feel like, I actually forgot what you asked. Sorry, darling.
Oh, no, I was asking just about, no, you've answered it around mediumship and whether, everyone's got the capacity.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think happens? I know I've got a lot of views and I've experienced some things and I've read lots of things, but from you've had a lot of connections with spirit and you're communicating with people who have passed, right? So from everything you've kind of experienced, what are the things that you feel like happen I know people have a lot of fear around dying.
Yeah, people have a lot of fear.
What can you share maybe to comfort people in that space?
Yeah, well, one of the most strongest things I know, so I know more about the experience that's closer from earth side to spirit rather than from spirit to earth side, if that makes sense.
Explain that. It'll make sense as you're talking more.
Yes. So what I've discovered through many of my connections, when a spirit has passed traumatically, say through an accident or taken their own lives or something really traumatic, what I've understood is that their soul will actually leave their body before they actually die. So they're not actually experiencing that pain in death. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So their soul's already gone.
Yeah.
And then their body is still kicking and fighting.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
What I do understand is that spirit will be met by their loved ones. Yeah. That's very, very, that's come through strongly so much.
Oh my God, so many. Yes.
So exciting. And there's always that feeling of joy and, being reunited with your loved ones. Like it makes me emotional.
Yeah, I feel it too, because they celebrate. Like one time I was having my one and only experience where I had a full conversation with my higher self, and there was like a request made for me to be able to learn my true name, and this whole thing happened. And then there was this, my higher self was like, I've got to go. Like, we're going to the celebration of joy. So my step grandmother had died not long before. And my higher self was like, I got to go. Like, we're celebrating joy. Like just this concept that they have parties there, they're celebrating. And another very close friend of mine, a beautiful business mentor, she came to me and she showed me like, it was like coming off the football ground, like where you've just played an amazing game, like you've just done all the things and and she said that was like for her when she passed over. The crowd was just like, oh my God, girl, like you went there to earth and you freaking smashed it. Like, look what you did this and you connected here, and just that was how she described it to me, which so cool.
And I do feel like the experiences are individual for different people and different souls too. It's not all the same, and it can vary. And I also feel there can be a lot of damage done by mediums who will pass on beliefs that have been passed on to them. For instance, there's this common belief that goes around that when a soul takes their own life, that they're going to be stuck between realms, which is really, 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 really fucking damaging.
No, that is not my belief. That is not my understanding.
It's some, and I've had, mums that have come to me, and I've brought through the sons or daughters or whatever, and they'll be saying, are they okay? Are they stuck? And I'm like, yeah, they're fine. They're with so-and-so, and I'll bring through so-and-so.
Yeah.
And then they'll say to me, well, I went to another medium who managed to just get a little bit of information from him. I mean, I kind of knew it was him, but she said that he was stuck in between
Oh,
realms.
I think
And
that's
then what mum wants to think that
so
their
much
child,
responsibility in the work to leave people better
yeah,
and to
absolutely.
people give. I mean, the job is comforting, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of personal responsibility
Mm.
with this work.
Yeah.
There really is. And if mediums are saying stuff like that, they really need to check themselves.
It's so
Because,
hard though, because then it's like, and go back to your dad, right? Of what he was doing and beating you and thinking he knew best. Like that
yes,
medium who's saying that,
that's true.
believe it, right?
That's
And that's the
true.
thing with all humans. We are all doing our best, and we all are coming from our beliefs of what we believe to be true. So, it's so, yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, this is another reason why I do what I do and why I teach at the level that I do, and why I do feel like I'm having a lot of success with students, because I really give it to them straight. I
Yeah.
don't sugarcoat it. I don't fucking sugarcoat a turd. Let's just put it that way. Because when I did all my training, it was amazing training that I got. I mean, I trained with teachers from around the world. But what I distinctly remember is that we weren't really given the difficult side of things. I had to figure that all out myself, all about the ethics and all
Yes.
this sort of stuff. I mean, maybe they did and I was half asleep, but I really remember it. I feel like I had to figure it all out myself and go through that. And so a lot of what I teach is also how to navigate difficult personalities in this life and tricky clients. Because what happens with a student is they actually will get sucked into the energy of that tricky client.
Yeah.
And then it becomes all about making the client happy instead of actually connecting with spirit and keeping your focus.
Yes. Yes.
It's a lot of that, but it's also the ethics
Yeah.
around this work, what you can say, what you can't say, how to read for somebody without taking away their power.
Yeah.
How to empower them.
Yeah.
That they don't keep coming back to you for reading every 3 months.
Well, that's right. You don't want it to be people have become codependent or reliant. Like the whole point of this work is for people to be able to connect with themselves and their truth, and equally to know that they can connect with their loved ones themselves.
Absolutely.
Right, through the signs that you've shared. Have there been times, Lindie, where you've just thought, fuck this, it's too hard, it's too, because energetically, I don't know about you, but when I do energy healings, one of my guide comes through and does the work and energetically with sound frequency and stuff. And there are some sessions that just don't take anything from me and I feel like I'm okay. And then I'll have a session sometimes where I feel like it does knock me.
Yes.
You give 1 hour of your time to do the work, but that energy, I mean, I'm playing in someone's energy for like an hour.
Absolutely.
And then it's like, okay, that's actually cost me 3 days.
Yes.
There are times that I just go, I don't know, like, I'm going to turn this off, man. I've got enough going on in life and, mum and everything, but we want to bring our gifts and we know we're here to do this stuff. But yeah, anyway, that's my question.
So I definitely have had more than a few times in the past where I will have stopped the reading at 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And sent them on their way. Now, looking back, I do recognize that perhaps I wasn't developed enough to be able to push through some of those tricky moments. Some of it is also pushing through some heavy shit that clients have. But also looking back, what I realize now is that spirit was probably protecting my energy because personally, I don't like working too hard and working through too much shit. Like people have to
I don't think anyone does really
meet me where I'm at. And so what I do recognize is that I have the skill to be able to make people relax. And so I can talk them through opening up their energy field, letting me in, letting me work them. But if they're too blocked, not going to happen. No. And I don't want to have to work that fucking hard, darling. Like you have to meet me. You have to be in the middle. Yeah. And the thing is, I remember reading for a journalist when I first moved to Geelong, and I was really nervous about reading for him because, number one, he was a man, and I hadn't read for a huge amount of men at that time But as I've said in the past, the best readings I've done have been for men sometimes, and I've never, ever not been able to read for a man. I've always managed to read. It's women that have actually blocked me the most. Not all women, and I love women too. Just don't get me wrong there.
We know you do.
Yeah. Love them all, babe. So where was I? You have to remind me because I'm going down the garden path here.
No, you're all good. I was saying, like, are there times where you just want to pack your bags and say, do you know what? I'm going to go work in a bakery.
Absolutely. No, not necessarily that, but just really saying to people, look, for whatever reason, this isn't working. It's not you, it's not me, it's just not the right energy.
That's the ethics as well. That's ethics as well. Because otherwise you could push through and you're not going to get anything. And it's like,
but then it just,
it's not authentic, right?
Yeah, it leaves you feeling shit, leaves me feeling shit. People have to be open to it. Sometimes people will come because they've heard that I'm good. And so they have that expectation on me. And usually I can deliver now because I'm super professional.
Yes.
And I'm not afraid to say to people, my darling, you need to relax a little bit because I can see you're holding yourself in and I can feel resistance. And when you're pushing out resistance, it makes it harder to connect and you're making my work extra hard. So I do need you to relax.
Yeah.
And so that'll generally open people up. But this journalist, back to that story.
Yeah.
So I was nervous reading for him, but he was absolutely divine. And I did the most beautiful reading for him. And then he wrote about it in the Geelong Addy. Yeah. And he said, one of the things he said was having a reading with Lindie is a little bit personal, like picking a scab. And I was like, fuck yeah.
It's quite satisfying, isn't it, to picking a scab?
Really intimate. Do you know what I mean? And
it is,
some people are not prepared for that.
Yeah.
They're not prepared because my readings are not fluff. They're not fluff. But if they want fluff, go to a $2 expo or something. Do you know what I mean? Like,
is there a particular reading without breaching confidentiality? Is a reading that stands out for you as like, wow, like so undeniable, or some, information that came that...
Yeah. Look, there's been so many of them over the years, but I feel like one of my most favorite readings was quite a recent one in the last couple of weeks, where I had a lady come and maybe like in her mid-50s to early 60s. And both her parents came through, her grandmothers and grandfathers. And there was just so much accuracy with the information and the detail and the messages. And it was so healing. Oh, that's right. One of her first boyfriends came through, the first one.
Yeah.
It was like years and years ago he had passed.
Yeah.
And I'm not giving any details, so I do respect privacy. But he came through with messages specifically to do with how he passed and why he passed. That was extremely healing for her. And he was the first one through, and then her mum and dad, and then everybody else came through. And she wasn't hugely emotional. She was just really open and receptive, and I could feel that she was blown away.
Yeah.
And I was just
must be so rewarding, like when you know that you're changing their perception, particularly people who maybe believe that this is it, right?
Absolutely.
And there'll be people maybe not listening to this podcast because they're already quite open to it, but people that just do think we die and that's it, and that we don't continue. And for them to have that undeniable truth like that, it would just be crazy. Okay, this is a kind of crazy, I know we're about to wrap it up, but what do you reckon goes on when, someone's had a boyfriend, they've been married a couple of times, and they're all back in spirit, and you got both your husbands there?
It happens. I've had that recently, actually. And I get it a lot with fathers. So I've got dad here, and then I'll go to scrum, they go, no, and they go, oh, that's my stepfather.
Yeah.
So I do get that a lot. And I'm
thinking like when you pass, like just say someone's married and then their husband dies and then they get a new husband, right? And then they pass and they're in spirit, and now there'll be, with reincarnation, presumably you believe in that, that you just must have all these lovers and all these connections. You're like back having this huge, like, in spirit festival.
But maybe it's just
your
like
lovers across the eons.
Maybe it should how we be here on earth, and just have all these lovers and husbands and wives and
Well, that's I know that's something we've spoken about before in terms of the this way of people maybe not being so rigid around rules and things should look like this and that. And the ultimate love is that unconditional love and having your partner's freedom as one of your highest priorities, whether it's sexual but just in all other areas, right?
We've got a lot of rules as humans.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rigidness. Is that a word?
Yes, rigidity. You got to look like this. You got to
That's it.
how a relationship should be, and this and that. And I think this next generation coming through, they're just going to go, hang about. Like we're not going to have cage upon cage upon cage anymore.
Absolutely.
Feel our way rather than be told how to do that. So just in closing, beautiful. What message do you think is the main kind of theme that comes from spirit to humans?
I feel it is about raising your vibration, literally, finding what brings joy to you and using that to raise the vibration, being mindful of your thought processes and how they take you down the garden path. Because that's where I'm at. That's where I've managed to grow. I'm such a different person than I was 6 months ago, 3 months ago.
2 days ago.
It's just incredible, the growth, and whatever doesn't serve me at the moment is really vibrating out of my life pretty quickly. I used to kick and scream. Now I'm just like, okay, I can see how that wasn't working, and off it goes. And so I do feel it is all about raising the vibration of yourself and the collective, finding what brings you joy. Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't need to be human, doesn't need to be spiritual. It just needs to be something that you love. And so finding joy in what you love and being mindful of what comes out of your mouth, because we're so quick to complain. It's okay to have a little whinge and stuff, but we're so quick to just constantly give energy negative. What about just raising that with some positive vibes? It's simple. And that's where the boundaries come into, because what we're doing is we are lowering our vibration to fit in with others that might be not at the same level of consciousness. Doesn't mean we're better or worse at all. No. That's not what it is. We've all come here to learn at different stages. I might get back to the other side and I'm a fucking baby. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying I'm highly evolved, because I really don't think I am at all. Do you know what I mean? I'm getting there. I feel like I'm just scratching.
I feel like we're just getting going.
We're just getting going. Like I know nothing really in the grand scheme of things, but it is all about raising our vibration, being aware of where our thoughts go, how we can help others. We do have to meet people where they're at, but we have to have boundaries around that as well, because some of us, actually I met this Argentinian chick at a festival this weekend, and she had the most beautiful analogy of describing different levels of consciousness and how people will vibrate out and maybe vibrate back in if the timing's right. And she used the escalator. She goes, imagine I'm going up an escalator, and she goes, I'm on the second floor, but my friend is still on the first floor. She said, I've got this beautiful view at the second floor, but my friend can't quite see it just yet. But I'll say to her, look, I'll see you down there, but I'm going to be up here, but I might go to the third level. But if you get here, great. We'll meet somewhere in the middle, kind of a thing, So I thought that was really beautiful to consider, but it's not putting myself at a higher fucking level, because it's not. But I know that if I'm going to surround myself with people that are of a lower vibration constantly, that's going to pull me down. I want to be surrounding myself.
A lot of spiritual work in that too, though.
There really is.
Because sometimes it kind of is, it can be
there's a lot to unpack.
Another analogy for that that I saw a woman, I don't know who she is. It's like, I don't know if she's a channel or a medium. She works out of a little caravan in like Ireland or something. I don't know if you know her, but she spoke about we're all on a train and we're all going home, but we're on different carriages.
Yes.
Because then it doesn't even have that levels piece of one being higher or bigger or better,
Yeah.
I loved that too.
Yeah, that's it. And that's it. We're all going in the same direction. We're all trying to help each other.
Yeah.
Sometimes people try to help everyone and that just shoots you in the foot. You know, for me, when I'm doing this work, yes, I have to have some sort of marketing and presence online because it's my business, because I know I'm here to reach more people. I'm not here to be a wallflower. I am completely okay.
I don't think that's ever going to on in your life.
You know, and I just want to be authentically me, and sometimes that's warts and all. You know.
But the more people see that, I feel like it does. It's cliche, but it does give people permission to be themselves, and not like this whole thing that we've been taught. We have to be perfect, and everything has to be this way and that way, and it's just setting humans up for just constant dissatisfaction.
That's it. I call it toxic spirituality. You know, when we feel like we have to be at a certain standard. You know, where some of the most spiritual people I know, they don't meditate and, you know, do all of that. They walk the land, you know, they work in the bush. You don't have to white light yourself every day and, you know, do all of these things. You just have to be a good human.
Just and more. I think one of the key messages from my guides is around playfulness.
Yes, fun.
Like you came to have this experience, and you've got this suit that you get to play in, and you get to taste things, and you get to enjoy. Because when my guides come in, often like one of them just sits down in my body and is like, just fully relishing in that experience of the weight of the body. You know, these things that we just take for granted, that we have here on this little kind of holiday in this in this body. I'm going to let you go because I know you've got a reading to get to.
Thank you.
Love.
And I just wrote about that in my March newsletter, actually, just as a little insight into March, about having fun. And really connecting with fun and joy.
Yeah, good.
You know, because there's so much focus on what's not working in the world. How about focusing on what is working?
Yeah, more fun, how you can bring pleasure into little parts of our life and our days. And just for me, I feel like this year is like a lot more singing and dancing and just connecting in those ways with other humans. So let's bring it on, baby.
Beautiful.
All right, well, I hope to see you on the dance floor of a festival soon.
Can't wait.
Thank you again. I love you.
Love you too, darling, and thank you so much for having me.
Oh, pleasure.
So grateful to you for listening. I'd love you to share this. If you got value, rate and review my podcast so I can reach more humans. For loads of free resources, go to aliciatemmerman.com. And that'll take you to my offerings in spaces I play in, my spiritual wellness business, retreats, one-on-ones and other things. Also, I love working with couples, so check out the Marriage Hub. Finally, I have been an employment lawyer for over 20 years now, and I work in workplace mediation, conflict resolution, and mediation in other areas too. DUMAIS, DUMAIS, Workplace Services is where you'll find all that info. I love you. Take good care of you.